It's time for a history lesson with Arch, as the ongoing English rebellion has hit a very interesting point. The I don't care point. The Frego moment. Now, Frego, of course, refers to a slogan made popular by the fascist movement in Italy that literally means, I don't care, and was used in Italy to justify political violence against the political violence of the left. Now, I will hasten to add, I don't think that what's going on here is in any way an indicator of fascism. I want to make that very clear. I think this is a reaction to the socialist reaction to the original Frego, which I will explain and expand upon over the course of this video. But let's begin with the basics here. So, this clip uploaded to the internet by The Bad Man, which is why I can't show you the tweet itself for fear of YouTube, shows a resident arriving with a ladder to take down an English flag raised by a bunch of patriots. He is quick to point out that, hey, the police are aware of what's going on here. I have called the occupational authorities to come back me up in taking down the English flag in England. This has been going on for quite some time now, with Operation Raise the Colours, with a lot of English patriots raising up the English and British flag across various English cities. And it has been met with not much of a organised oppositional movement yet. The occupational authorities don't really know what to do about this, because taking down the English flag in England would obviously be perceived as, well, the actions of an occupational authority, which is what the current Labour government is, and they've received enormous critique for spending governmental funds on cleaning up roundabouts painted in the St. George colours, for example, like right here. Or headlines like this: St. George Cross intimidating, council says. And that's even a nerfed headline from the previous St. George's flag, explosion of patriotism is intimidating. That is the official position of the Dorset Council leader, Nick Ireland, a resident of England and a member of the occupational authorities. Now, this then is an example of one of the residents, the people who aren't really Englishmen, frankly, at this point, going, well, that flag is offensive, I've got to take it down, and I've got the state to back me up. Though I will also hasten to add, it is important to differentiate legitimate clips, which this appears to be a legitimate one. The resident appears nervous, he's sweating, he arrives on scene looking very, very confident to begin with, like, hey, I've already notified the occupational government, they'll be here soon to help me take down the flag. He expects no opposition, but he meets it. And immediately he's like, hold on, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to stop me from taking down the English flag in England. And he grows more and more nervous over the course of the confrontation. And by the way, I will also point out that the people here try to take his ladder from him. You shouldn't do that because it will make you the villain. Not morally, mind you, but in the eyes of the occupational government, it will make you legally the villain, giving them an excuse to come after you. Don't. Film it, demonstrate it, and show it off, but do not sabotage or engage it. Again, remember, you have to do this within the law here. And to differentiate clips like this with clips like this, as there are right now a tremendous number of people who are attempting to, well, get their own piece of this pie, or who are simply tricked into uploading things that look very staged. You've got a huge watermark here. You've got a confrontation between two individuals, both looking weirdly relaxed, one claiming the English flag is offensive. There's lots of people in the neighborhood that thinks it is offensive. And unlike this clip, where the camera is very clearly held haphazardly in one person's hand, here it's fixed on what seems like a solid tripod or something. Now, that doesn't guarantee that this is staged, but In this age of information overflow and a great deal of disinformation as well, it is important, especially with matters of this kind of gravitas, that everything is investigated with a degree of criticism, right? But that is not to say, however, that the idea of the English flag being offensive is rare. Indeed, like we just said, Dorset Council leader finds it intimidating. The BBC is willing and able to report on it as well. So, let's get on then to the Frego moment, shall we? In Italy, there were the so-called 2 Red Years. This was a period of, as the name implies, 2 years of socialist intervention, where various communist labor movements occupied factories, farms, and other things run by the bosses. They did so with force and with weapons, and often barricaded themselves within the factories. This led to a great deal of disruption within Italian society, and led the majority of the population to side with anyone and everyone capable of making the occupations end, which happened to be Mussolini's black shirts, fascists, who then began to chase out the socialists with their own superior street violence. And what was the reaction then, when the communists complained? "You're attacking us! You're hurting us! Why are you being violent, you bad fascists?" The fascists said, "Me ne frego! We don't care." The response to that from the socialists, again, was the doctrine that we are currently seeing being implemented in the West, that was invented largely by Antonio Gramsci. The idea of, instead of armed revolution, which simply wasn't going to work, but because it would be opposed by the natural state of Western society, liberalism, instead they were going to try to undermine liberalism, to use its strength against it. If it could not have its armed revolution, then it would have a societal one instead, so as to avoid the backlash of fascism, because socialism in all its forms is simply not compatible with liberal society. That is what we are seeing today, where we are using the "don't you care" as the cudgel with which to beat everyone else with. See, the entire argument of the left for the last decade has in essence been, don't you care? Don't you care about equality? Don't you care about diversity? Don't you care about racism? And since we were all very liberal societies, we of course we care. Racism bad. A lack of diversity, but diversity good. We're not racist. We don't hate other people. We are liberals. And so the "don't you care" was extraordinarily effective. But the question was never really, hey, don't you care about your liberal ideals? No, it was all again a smoke screen, a ruse and a subterfuge to push in the socialist ideals. We know this because it comes from the mouth of their very organizers themselves, claiming to be trained Marxists. We know it from the writings of Antonio Gramsci explaining out this very tactic. We know it from what we've seen of the political movement of progressivism and all of its various consequences, particularly in England with enforcement of hate speech laws and crackdowns against anyone who thinks otherwise. And the best way to counter "don't you care" is with no, I don't care. And that's where we are right now, as there's a part of this clip where the resident goes, "Don't you understand? You're part of a right-wing movement. You're fascists." And the person raising the English flag, knowing that he's not, simply says, "I don't care." That is how you counter it. And that is now what has been very clearly demonstrated in England, has become kind of the majority point of view. No, you don't take down the English flag. No, you cannot shame me in my own country. This is an entirely legitimate form of protest, and it is. And there doesn't appear to be any proper response against it. Again, what is the council going to do? It's going to spend hundreds and thousands of pounds cleaning this up. This is, a couple of dollars worth of paint, that's it. The council is going to have to mobilise a cleaning truck to come out here with 1 or 2 labourers to clean it up, costing £200, £300, £400, £500 to fix this. Crews are going to be sent out to pick down every last English flag, with all of the safety regulations and precautions that the government is required to take. It's going to take 3 labourers an hour to dismount 1 flag. Literally, if this continues, you will drive the council bankrupt just simply attempting to counter the nationalist sentiment of the English. A struggle they will lose, and they will look like pricks whilst doing it too. It is a win-win situation for the English. And for every person like this, the people who have been legitimately brainwashed by the progressive movement, the good liberal who thinks to himself, but I do care, and these people clearly don't, they are simply evidence, yet again, of the brainwashing of a small portion of the populace. They should not be interfered with again. You shouldn't take their ladder. You certainly shouldn't assault them in any way whatsoever. You should film them and simply say, hey, this is how bad things are. You have English people having been brainwashed to be quislings for the occupational authority. That is the best thing you can do. Now, the next interesting question then is, of course, will this escalate? Because right now, again, we are not at the Frego fascist stage, we are at the socialist answer to Frego, and then our answer to that again being, we don't care. This is not fascist. I need to, again, hammer that point home. This is a separate solution to a separate issue that simply has some historical connotations. The next step then is the question, what will the left do next? If they don't have a response other than trying to take down the flags themselves, will this in turn turn organized? As that's what we saw in history as well. The various communist and socialist movements began creating militias in order to attempt to undermine the nation state. Right now, the attempt to undermine the state via Gramscian means has failed, because everyone is now aware of it. They are no longer able to subvert the functions of liberalism against liberalism, which means that either they need to back down, realize that their movement has failed, or they need to escalate. I think the history of progressivism so far has made it very clear that de-escalation is unlikely to be an option, which means we have now the potential to see an escalation into street violence. And what follows from there, well, again, if you're a student of history, I think you already see where this is going. The interesting question is, and the hopeful answer, is that we will be able to find a different answer than last time. Instead of choosing between 2 different forms of socialism, one international and one national, we need now to come up with a better version of, well, in essence, national liberalism. Some way to maintain our values, which I believe anti-censorship to be a core principle of. Some way to keep our principles intact, whilst rejecting the opposition's principles with the amount of fervor that is required here. It is no longer enough to say I disagree, and here's why. It has to be I don't care. Whether or not we manage to come up with that solution has yet to be seen, but I do believe that myself and many others are doing their best to come up with it, to provide an alternative to both extremes here. We'll see. But do let me know in the comment section down below of what you think of all of this. Because again, this good, universally good, proper, prideful patriotism. Nothing wrong with it, and it's working. keep doing it. And keep in mind the historical connotations both of the counter-movement and the potential reactions to it. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. A good day.